Welcome back to Saruwatari Xtreme. We have to continue on in the fuel system, which seems like an endless task. So what we'll be focusing on is the fuel pump, getting it off the car, testing it, seeing if it works. And also we're going to need to clear all the plumbing and check the condition. Now I do realize that a lot of this probably doesn't relate to you, unless you have race cars that you've been shelving and now you're trying to get them back into service. But I do have quite a bit of experience with regular cars, even my Ferraris, the NSX, multiple other cars have had the same problem, just lost track of time. So what I am trying to do is incorporate that information of knowledge that I know to pass on to you. And that for sure is applicable to your cars in case you run against the same type of problem. When we were running the 7, the Weldon fuel pump was the best. However, we have no idea the condition of this pump. So what we need to do is start by breaking the lines. Okay, there we go. I'll try and push this just out of the way. Let's see if we can just use a dash 8 there. Take a step back just in case there's any fuel. All right, it looks like the fuel returned back to the cell because you'll remember we're at a lower level, which could be a good thing for us. Maybe we'll get a little luck, but I wouldn't count on it. So, let's see, I got 2 bolts on the pump. Okay. In Motec fashion, it looks like we don't have a connector. We're gonna need to cut the power line. So first thing we'll do is we need to take the ground off right here because it's been sitting so long I can see some corrosion on the ground, so we'll need to clean everything really good. As you all know, grounds are extremely important. Weighty. Okay, and the pump is clear. Now that the pump's down, I brought it down over here and skipped a few steps. I went ahead and called Abel because he's much more up on the cutting edge of things, and I wasn't even sure if Weldon is still the pump to go with, and he definitely recommends Weldon is for sure the pump to go with, especially if you're going to be running methanol, which it looks like that's what I was gearing up for. However, we did end with C16. So those of you building your street cars or your drift cars, any race cars, according to the rotary god, Weldon is still the way to go with. So for us, when we looked in there, as I was telling you, the fuel level was below in the cell, which means the fuel had drained back, and I wasn't carrying a lot of fluid in here for all that time, which is really good because when we looked in the pump, we didn't really see very many problems. It actually looked pretty good to me. However, when I brought it over here, since I was in a bit of a hurry, I went and hooked it up to the 12-volt battery. But right when I touched it, I hooked the positive, and then when I touched the negative terminal, I got a huge spark, and I don't want to reenact that. So basically what happened is the pump was stuck, okay? So Weldon pumps are rebuildable, and a lot of the high-end pumps are, but a lot of us don't like to rebuild the pumps because they're so critical. So if they're in good shape though, visually like this, I'm gonna go ahead and take a stab at it. So what I do is, I'll put the pump on this wood block, okay? And then I'll take a dead blow hammer, and I'm gonna lightly tap on it because I think the housing just might be stuck from sitting so long. So I'll take it and I'll hit it like this. I wouldn't go crazy, okay? And then I'm gonna go ahead and tap on the other side as well, just to see if everything's stuck. And if it is, if I can free it up. Okay, so now after that, what I'll do is I'll chuck it up in the vise again, bring it down. Okay. I'll lock it in place. with some soft jaws so I don't tear up the housing. Then on the power, I'll take the positive, hook it direct to the battery like I did before. And what we want to do is, to free it up, I sprayed in, you guys know I like Tri-Flow, so I use this. And then of course I'll put some diesel in it and we'll send it through the pump and see what happens. So immediately if it arcs real bad and doesn't turn, then we're in bad shape. But we'll just put a little bit in there. There it is, filled up to the top, okay? Make sure we catch whatever we can. And again, if you're using fuel and this arcs, it's probably not the greatest thing. So let's just go ahead and touch it and see what it does now, if that freed it. And every now and then I get lucky. So the pump's now freed, you saw it went down, and pretty much I believe it's usable, which is of course good news, but I like to double check it because that was just a quick hit. All fuel pumps, try not to run them dry. They just do not like to run dry and it wears them out. A lot of them times they'll eat themselves. So it's always good to pour something in. I'll hit it again, just like that, and check again. And for sure, I think this is one of those times I got lucky. So from that, I now know that I can clean the pump and send it back into the car. And of course, we still have to clean everything else, but this is really great news for me, especially because the pumps, they're not cheap. They're not the most expensive, but Abel was telling me a new one of these will run me somewhere around $750. And those of you that are looking for Weldon pumps and fuel advice, really Abel's on the cutting edge. So if you call FR Performance, he's also, I believe, a Weldon dealer. So that's something to think about. So now all of you that have street cars that run into these problems, I have a few tips also to help you. So if we walk over here, let's take a look at a couple cars that I've run into problems over time. So the first being the NSX. So a lot of you remember I was talking about the NSX sat for a really long time, and I definitely had all sorts of problems. I had to drop the tank and everything. I had to send the injectors to RC. It's all pretty much standard procedure. So if you kind of follow what's going on in the RX-7, it translates to what you would do on a regular car. One thing that I will recommend is you always want to be looking forward on projects like this, especially if you're not doing the work yourself because you're paying somebody to do it. So one thing I did when I went into the NSX is, since I had to change the pump and the pump was gone, I changed to the Super Pump. So that provided a lot more fuel, and I no longer had to use the booster pump type system that increased the voltage to the pump to spin it faster on the NSX. So if you're always thinking ahead, it'll save you in the long run and can possibly make your system a lot less complicated. That's one thing to consider that might help you. The other thing is something different. And this was actually recommended to me on the NSX, but it didn't work. But it did work on my 355. So I will pass it on to all of you, and it's actually very unique. The 355 has been sitting a long time, probably about 1.5 years, not as long as the NSX. So the fuel hadn't turned actually to varnish, it had just started to turn to go bad. But the ironic thing is the pump wasn't working. And as you all know, when you turn the ignition on, of course, you can get the pump to cycle. Everything else seemed to be working okay. So my good friend George Kudo, you remember, who is a master engineer at Honda, pinnacle in the NSX development, recommended something to me that no one had ever told me, but maybe it will help you because it actually worked on the 355. And that is, this is a fluid evacuator. So possibly you guys will remember that you hook up compressed air and it actually creates a vacuum. It's usually used to pull brake reservoirs, bleed the brakes. But what he told me to do was take one of these and hook it up to the fuel outlet and then get maximum vacuum on the system, make sure the battery is fully charged, turn the key. The unusual thing is that worked. That freed the pump in the 355 and saved me thousands of dollars from dropping the tank and everything. So that very well could help you if you haven't gone past the threshold of point of no return. Just something that I wanted to point out that you could possibly try. One thing to keep in mind though, some of these are very specific. Do not use with flammable liquids. So if you're going to order one for yourself, just pay attention to that. And it's a great tool to have because you can use it for brakes, coolant. You'd be amazed how much I use this on all sorts of different jobs. So if you have it handy, it might also help you to get your car going. As you can see as we go along here, it's just a lengthy process. So we'll just continue on to try and get everything dialed here on the fuel system. The next thing we're going to need to do is flush the lines. Now, of course, if you're replumbing your car, it's a lot easier. You can just flush it off the car. But since of course everything is already plumbed, we're gonna go ahead and do it on the car. The first thing I do is I always wrap rags around all the injector mounts. It's a pretty messy job, and so you wanna minimize your blow by and your flashing. Take it from me, sometimes I'll forget, and boy man, it's a mess to clean up. So now that we know that everything is basically blocked off and guarded, we'll raise it up and go to the back. Okay, so moving back here, we'll go ahead and take a look. The first thing I'll say is when you're working in the fuel system, I always use safety glasses. There's been a few times where there's blockage in the line, and boy man, when it blows back hard. So we're gonna need some compressed air, and okay. Now, take a look here. Throw a pan down. All right. So as you can see here, we have the main feed. Now in any fuel system that's been open or sitting for a long time like this, the easiest thing is to look at the line in there to see if it's breaking down or if something's happening to the rubber. But with the AN fitting, we can't see anything. So we'll have to go to secondary check. Again, what we'll do is we'll take this right here. Air right there, and then we'll take diesel again and put it in the line. And when you put it in, you try and hold the line up, of course, otherwise it will drain back on you. And like I was saying, it's always nice to have a pan underneath you because it will probably come right back to you, okay? Then you just take your compressed air and a light hit in the beginning, okay? So mount it up here and then just go ahead and do it. Okay, and you can see it came back. Okay, I can actually hear it on the front side, okay? So you want to be listening because you'll hear the airflow. That's a real good sign. So at least the passage is clear. What we don't know is if anything is breaking down, especially since this is rubber. Now, if you're doing this to your regular car, most of the time you have steel lines, they're coated, so the key would be rust. For this, we're looking for the rubber to break down. So what we'll do for extra insurance is we'll fill it again, okay? And you really can't do this too much. You just want to make sure you get as much out as you can, any contaminants in there, because this is a discharge off the fuel pump. So it is after the filter. So we are not going to be filtering any of this, okay? There it is, nice, coming down on my arm again. Take the compressed air. This time I'm going to give it a good hit since I know it's clear. Okay, perfect. So as you can see, we made quite the mess. I'm quite messy at everything I do. All right, so now what we want to do is bring the car back down. Okay, so here's what's important. So once you've blown the lines clear, that's when you want to pull your rags back, okay? You take a look here. You can see, double check that the diesel made it here. Okay, now if you can see that, that's the diesel traveling through the line. If you see black and you have rubber lines, then you're in trouble because that means that the line is decomposing and fall apart. Just because you look at the line and it's not cracked on the outside, the true story is in the inside. Without actually getting in there, that's what you're looking for. Now, if you had a metal line, you're looking for rust. If it's orange, you're basically screwed. You got to change them. So this is a real good sign that we don't see any black here on the secondary. Let's check down here and see if we made it here. If I can get it. Oh yeah, there we go. Take a look at that. Okay, so we see no black residue of any kind. I don't see any debris, so it looks like still my stroke of good luck is still running. So we'll take a look now at everything. So this came from the pump side, okay? Now, of course, the injectors are here. You know that I sent them out to RC Engineering, so they're all cleaned and ready. Now, of course, after the injectors on this side, they travel through to the fuel pressure regulator. The RX-7 runs an SX regulator. I don't even know if that's the regulator run anymore, but it worked well for what I was doing. So we'll take a look at it now. You can see right here what these are fuel dampeners. So the injectors are pulsing all the time. So to decrease that pressure fluctuation inside the line, we'll run dampeners. You'll see them a lot on your factory cars. You definitely want to make sure they're in good condition. But at this particular juncture, what we're of course trying to do is we're just trying to make sure that the lines are okay. So we're just doing it one at a time. So now we got to put this back here on these. And the reason why is we're going to back flush from that side. Okay. All right. Now we've got these rags into position, and we're mostly worried about this side because we're coming from the regulator side. All right. So that's that. I'll grab my trusty friend, my bottle of diesel. And you know, everyone uses whatever they want. Some people use solvent, some people actually like to use gas. As you know, I'm not a fan of becoming the human torch. So I'll use diesel, but basically use whatever you want. Okay. All right, so we just break these lines off the regulator. Okay. And there we go. This one free. Take a look. Looks pretty good. I don't see any residue in there. Take this one. Okay. I'll break this one free. All right, you can get a good view of the AN fittings here. Just give me a quick second. I'm gonna go grab the air hose. It would have been a good idea to untangle this before we started shooting, but unfortunately, I'm a little bit behind. Okay, so now, like we talked about, so we're just going the opposite direction now, and it's much easier up here because these lines are free. They're not holding vertically, so just take the diesel, force them in, okay, start coming out the top. All right, now again, I'll just hit it a little bit to make sure everything's okay. Okay, the line's clear. I don't know if you got a chance to see that, but you can definitely see the diesel flashing back. Okay. All right, and you can see if we didn't have our friendly rag there, we'd be making a horrific mess. It's already bad enough with the rag. All right, now that was a secondary line. Okay, so coming up. All right. Again, service bra is nice. You don't make a mess of all the paint. Okay. Okay, it's clear. All right. Now, the moment of truth. Whew. Let's go ahead and pull the rags back and take a look here. All right. So, take a look at that. Very good, good shape. We would pretty much expect this because the main line coming from the feed from the pressure side of the pump was fine. So I'll just take a look down here and see. And the good luck continues. All right, so again, if you see black and you have rubber lines, replace. Don't even chase it anymore. If you see orange or metallic and you have metal lines, it's really bad times. It is replace. Obviously, rubber is much easier in all given cases. This is the fuel return. We're returning back to the fuel cell. And luckily we have it on quick release. So I can get to that one and also flush this one at the same time. If I can maneuver it properly. All right, let's see if I can get it up here. All right, there's our air. All right, okay, there. Now what we'll do is we'll just hold it there for a second. All right, it's in the line. We need to go back to the cell. Okay? Luckily, I remembered that I hadn't actually planned to go this far on the first part of this filming. So I don't have a rag on the return line. So I'll come back here, okay, and put this on here so I don't blow diesel everywhere back here. Okay, and I'll just put it right there and tuck it in there. All right, should be okay. All right, now back up to the front. We already have diesel in the return line. Same process. We'll pick it up. It's pressurizing pretty good. Okay, I can hear it coming out back there, so we know it's clear. All right, let's give it a good hit. All right, that's full tilt. Now we'll set this down. Let's go back and take a look back here. All right, so here's a rag off the return line. Everything is good. This steel braided line, rubber in there, no remnants. It looks like everything looks good so far. All in all, today was a good day. Everything seemed to pretty much go my way, which is very uncommon on any project I do, especially the 7 and the X. But since we're at a good stopping point because we've been working on this for quite some time and everything is going on a good note, we should finish and wrap it up now. So I'll see you next time.